Shalane, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Yeah. And I've been really looking forward to spending time with you. Your body of work is exceptional. Your insights are rich. And so I'm incredibly excited to learn from you. But I thought maybe we could start with what is the hardest thing that you do?
At the moment, it is being a parent and being a mom to my son, Jack, who's 20 months old. And I have always wanted to be a mom. And I knew it was going to be extremely rewarding. And I find that hard things are rewarding. But the hardest thing I do is waking up every day and bringing the energy to my son and making sure he stays safe and, just creating a really great environment for him. I'd say that that's the hardest thing I do every day.
Mm. And you're going to be borrowing from your insights of your parents, like we all do. And maybe we can just set the scene a little bit. Both of your parents have a rich understanding of human performance. And so can you highlight some of their successes, which is really cool? And then can you also give me an understanding of what it was like growing up with, accomplished parents?
I like to joke. I chose my parents very well. They genetically gave me and passed along some great genetics. Both of them were world-class runners. They actually met at World Cross Country in Europe. So obviously very high caliber running. And my mom probably has the biggest accolade to her name of at one point being the world record holder in the women's marathon. And at the time, no women had broken 3 hours and she did. And she didn't hold it for very long, but it's amazing where athletics, especially for women, has moved and transcended to, and the opportunities that I've received, her being a pioneer in the sport. So collectively, my parents, I didn't know that they were that good of athletes. So growing up, like now I know, and I have the comparison of my own career and knowing how hard it is to be great at this level and excel. But growing up, I just saw them as my parents. I just saw two people that loved the outdoors. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado for the first 5 years of my life. And I grew up running up in the mountains and into the Flatiron Hills. And I was in a culture and a climate in which running was really popular, Frank Shorter era. And I grew up in the back room, shoe room of Frank Shorter's running store. And I just thought it was normal that everyone ran and exercised. But I found out later in life that that was maybe not so normal. They never pushed me into running. They threw a million sports in my way, but I always gravitated as a little girl towards running because I felt this just like innate calling that I was really good at it. I could just feel it. And I felt the best about myself. I felt the most confident, the most beautiful. Every positive feeling when I was running, I felt just, it came out while I was actually running. And I could just sense that this was something I was going to be really good at. And, my parents made me play a bunch of sports, my sister and I, and soccer, skiing, swimming, and nothing really stuck. I was not very gifted in any of those other sports. So it kind of made it easier, for them to allow me to pursue running more and more as I go older. But yes, thankfully chose my parents very well. And on top of it, I seem to have the same passion, to find out how good I could be in running.
Mm. The cynic in me, which I'm not very cynical, but the cynic in me is like, okay, two world-class parents. There's either an obtuse obsession about running, and you would kind of be force-fed to run, either from a very concrete, explicit standpoint from your parents, or there was a manipulation, a great manipulation, and what I hear you saying, and the great manipulation is something like, choose whatever you want. We're going running. If you don't run, you have to do something. And if you don't do something well, you probably should run because we're doing that. And I don't know, maybe that's not so subtle, but so it sounds like it wasn't that. It sounds like it was something a bit different.
They were constantly trying to get me to not run. I'll be honest, like they would.
Why is that?
I think they knew that I had a a gift. I think they could see it. And, you know, I don't know how they saw
So
it.
why would they? Yeah, but why would they push
Yeah.
against your gift? Like, help me.
I think they were wanting to delay. I think they were worried about me getting into running too soon and being this prodigy and the expectations and the weight of that at a young age. I think they knew if they gave me any little bit of training, I would fly. I had the just natural genetics to be good at running. And I think they wanted to delay that success. And they wanted it to genuinely be my choice that I was a runner. They did not want anything of what they had done to influence my decision. They wanted it to be genuinely my decision. So they definitely took a step back and they let me explore a variety of sports. And in fact, constantly were trying to derail me from running, like saying, nah, let's do something else. And in fact, I didn't run all year round until I got to college. And that is very rare. Nowadays, I feel like children are so singularly focused and want to hone their skills and get into a good college and a scholarship. And my parents were constantly saying, no, let's try something else. And I think they really wanted to reinforce being very well-rounded and also appreciative of the skill sets that I weren't good at, because that actually made me a better athlete and a better person. They felt like if I could learn how to lose and lose well and take those emotions and drive and apply that to when I actually am good at something, there'll be more value in pursuing that other goal.
Is your family is your family ethos more around achievement and excellence, which are not the same, they're different, but are they more around one of those two, or the feeling of being alive when fill in the blanks, running at the edge, running at capacity, or maybe a fourth option for you guys is that movement is a lifestyle. And, if you happen to be really great at this movement, then keep going. So, or something in between. But how do you respond to those handful of options?
That's a good question. You know what? I should ask them. My mom is down the hallway and my dad lives up the street. So I should go ask them. But I feel like at the end of the day, they've always said they want their children to be happy and just feel fulfilled and purpose in their life. And so I think they saw the confidence and the happiness that running brought me. And my dad would always say, like, he didn't want me to ever, when I was younger, train. It was more, let's go play running, which is a strange thing to say, right? Like playing running, you play soccer, you play basketball, but playing running. But it always stuck with me that there should be something joyful about running. And so I think it's more like you said, the ethos is in the concept. I felt like growing up was, let's find out how good you can be, but that should be a fun pursuit. There shouldn't be a weight and a heaviness of expectations. It should be, let's just see what you can do. This is so fun. Push yourself, push your mind, push your body, and find out where the limitations are. And if you can, like in that pursuit of it is a lot of joy and a lot of connection with community and with other people. And in that regard, it enhances your life and you feel really alive when you're pursuing something at a high level. And so that's kind of the concept that I took with me in my running. And I feel like it benefited me with that mindset. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, that I was always like that, but if I ever had to recenter myself and figure out why I was doing something, those were the concepts that I'd always try to draw upon.
Okay. I want to mark 3 phases and then ask 2 questions for each phase. Okay. So let's go high school, middle school in that range. Then let's go college and then post. Okay. So the first question, and we'll go through horizontally, if you will, is I was scratchy, internally agitated and scratchy, the thing that was really unsettling for me at each point. So as high school and middle school, I was scratchy about.
Yeah. My parents were divorced and I felt very different than my peers. So I think I definitely felt like an outsider and I always wanted to fit in. And my dad would remind me, like, he'd always say, like, dare to be different, Shalane. It's okay to be different, be uniquely you. And so I think it was like, I felt scratchy about my uniqueness and being different. And the fact that I liked running and it was not popular when I was in middle school and high school, and choosing a sport that wasn't popular and trying to find my own path and having confidence in that path made me very scratchy.
Yeah, so you needed running. It sounds
Yeah.
like at that level, like you're good at it. They kept throwing other things in your way. There was an unsettled family dynamic. You didn't know how you quite fit in because a lot of your other friends, maybe their parents were intact in that way, maybe miserable, but intact at least. That's
Yeah.
again the cynic
Yeah.
leaking out. Well, I'm really not a cynic, but and then you felt at home with running, and so your parents were mindful that overtraining is an issue, but in some respect, you needed running to be able
Mhm.
to start to build your identity.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So that sets me down a really interesting path I'll share with you in a minute. Okay. So
Okay.
then the second, during college, let's go college years. I was
Yeah.
unsettled. I was scratchy about.
Yeah. Just wanting to prove that I was and feel validated by the fact that I was given this opportunity to go to a university that I probably didn't deserve to get into based on my academics and scores. And so I felt the need to feel validated in that and honor that scholarship through my running. And so I was so hungry and like itchy and scratchy to get to that next level and to be so good that I'd have the opportunity to go beyond college and have more running in my life. I was anxious and scratchy to get results that were worthy of validating the scholarship and where I was, and then also to extend my running just beyond that 4-year period. I wanted to keep
Okay.
running in my life forever.
Okay. And underneath, what did that dialogue monologue sound like inside of you? This is an intimate question now. And
Yeah,
I realize that. But
I'm curious if I'm good enough to like if I am introspective enough because I don't know that I've ever thought of that dialogue. But yeah, like I definitely, I think just I probably to a degree really liked having a skill set that was exceptional and also seeking to a degree like the validation of the attention felt good coming from a place where in middle school and high school I was kind of ostracized and made fun of, and to a degree just like seeking the validation from myself, from others, to that my path was worthy of the time. And
so if there's a bridge between those two, which is I was ostracized, made fun of, was it because of your body type, which is perfectly fit for or genetically fit for running, or was it your parents? Was it a mole that you have on your cheek? And I don't know if you have a mole. Like what was the thing? Did you have a stutter? What were you being?
No, it's because I just wasn't falling in line with what my peers were into. Like, so my peers would go out on a Friday, Saturday night, and they'd call me and they'd say, "Oh, we're going out and we're gonna meet up and we're gonna go to the beach and we're gonna drink and we're gonna do this and that." And I would be like, "Nah, I'm cool. I'm hanging out with my dad tonight. I've got a race on Saturday," and I was invested and I liked being with my family. I liked being with my parents, and I was like in this weird world of just trying to be in with the cool kids, but my natural being was not to meet what they thought was fun. Actually wasn't what I genuinely thought was fun. So I was struggling with trying to fit in, but as well honoring the fact that I know I have something special within me and I want to find out like if I do and where it's going to lead me and take me. And it just, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Go back to the college mode here that we're working from. And then that intimate question, what did I say to myself? Can you go there one more time? Like what I want to know, because listen, what you've done is extraordinary. And you've got a real commitment to mental health. And we'll get to that in a moment. But I want to know what you were saying to yourself. Like, golly, I don't fit in. Man, what are they going to think of me? Geez, when am I ever going to feel okay? I don't know what they were, but I do want to know what those are the scratchy thoughts. And then I'm super interested how you worked with them, but I want to get to that later. But what were some of the very specific thoughts that you were saying? There's a
Um,
little, I'm sorry, there's a little reconstructionist here, like we're
yeah.
going back. Yeah.
Um, I think also just I genuinely loved working hard and finding out like, man, like I loved finishing a workout and like making myself sick. Like I loved pushing my physical limits, which also goes hand in hand with the mental. And so, I'd get to a point in a session and in a workout where I'm like, my body is literally telling me like, you cannot go further. You have to slow down. And I'd keep like holding my hand on that like hot pad and finding out, how long can I hold it? And, to me, there must be some masochist reason why, but like that too was also just always like I wanted to annihilate and attack everything running wise. And there must be some type of like, I don't know, you would probably know better than me, but some type of release in terms of just like feeling in control of that, or I don't even know. But that was a constant thought of like, always like scratchy is like, I really just want to attack every single session that I'm allowed to go hard, and really enjoyed that.
Okay, I just want to take a quick little pause right here to talk about a new partner that I'm vibing with. It's called Everyday Dose. Everyday Dose, it's an alternative coffee drink that combines functional mushrooms, collagen, and nootropics. Even if you're not typically a coffee drinker, I think that you might want to consider this because Everyday Dose is different. It's a new kind of coffee, if you will. It only has a third of the caffeine of normal coffee so that you're less likely to feel jittery or some sort of crash later in the afternoon. And it also contains extremely low acidity, which means that it causes fewer digestion problems likely for people. And digestion and some of that acidic nature is one of the reasons that people have to pull back from coffee in the first place. It's formulated with wild harvest chaga and lion's mane. Both are double extracted for maximum bioavailability. Does it give you energy? Yep. And focus. Does it taste like coffee? Yep. And it's an awesome vehicle to deliver nutrients packed with flavor. The mix of ingredients that they have, it's awesome. I love what they're doing. Lion's mane, brain support, chaga for immune and inflammation, L-theanine for a focused calm, collagen, amino acids, caffeine, coffee extract. I mean, what a great mix. Head over to everydaydose.com/finding mastery to learn more and to use the code finding mastery at checkout for 50% off your order. That's everydaydose.com/finding mastery for 50% off with the code finding mastery. And Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Ice Barrel. I am a staunch believer that recovery is one of the most overlooked and essential staples for performing at a high level consistently. So Ice Barrel is a cold therapy training tool that offers an easy way to bring ice baths to your routine. So they have a clean design and a really compact footprint, and designed for you to experience the benefits of cold therapy from the convenience of your home. So from whether it's an apartment balcony or backyard or garage, Ice Barrel makes cold therapy easy, convenient, accessible. All you have to do to get started is to fill it with water and ice. And I've been loving it. Some of the things that I notice after using it are there's this immediate sensation of vibrance. And now if you haven't practiced cold therapy yet and don't quite understand the science, this alone is awesome. There's an on that takes place when you get out of cold therapy. So anyways, it's easy to clean, store, looks great. Ice Barrel is named by Men's Health the best cold therapy tool for 2021. So we're not messing around with you here. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied for any reason. So they're also hooking us up with a good deal. So go to icebarrel.com/finding mastery and get $125 off your order when you use the code finding mastery at checkout. So that's $125 off and free shipping with the code finding mastery. So punch over to icebarrel, ICEBARREL, icebarrel.com/finding mastery. And now let's jump right back into our conversation. Yeah, so there's an unhealthy, healthy thing happening there.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. And then did you have, and I didn't read this when I was learning about you, but did you have any eating disorder stuff?
No, not, I would say my first year as a pro, when I graduated, I started to realize like, oh, I don't look like the other elite women. And here I am elite. I'm wearing the kit. I got to look the part. And I feel like my first year as a pro.
Doesn't it sound crazy when you say it out loud, like as an
Yeah.
adult? Yeah, as an adult, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But as
All right.
as a pro, I was like, oh, I should probably try to look the part. And I feel like the first
Yeah.
year as a pro, trying to like look the part, I definitely didn't have a good relationship with food. But then I realized like this isn't sustainable. Like I cannot have 20 years of running and live in this weird world of analyzing food. And so therefore I immediately was like, I have to recalibrate my thinking. So I never saw anyone for it, but I remember voicing the concern to my husband, like, man, this isn't sustainable the way I'm thinking about food. I have to like rework that wiring in my brain. But definitely not in college. If anything, I overate and to compensate for the other athletes that were around me that did have eating disorders, I wanted to be like a good role model. And so at times I would overeat to try to like showcase like, hey, you can be good, you can be fast, and you have to eat. So yeah.
So you were really aware of the forcing function that other people's opinions had on your thoughts and behaviors. Like you had this,
Probably.
so you had a meta awareness that I don't look a certain way or they're doing certain things. And so you had this meta awareness. And then when you scoot into it just a little bit more, it sounds like you were at least moderately motivated by what other people were thinking about you.
Probably. I think as at a younger age, that's for sure, like definitely more weight than it does now, but
Mm-hmm.
for sure then the influence of by the people, I mean, in general, like you're influenced by the people you're surrounded by, right? A lot. At least I feel that way.
A lot.
My happiness, I know, is largely influenced by the people I work with. And so I'm very calculated and careful with who I work with because I know that they have an infiltration into my subconsciousness that I'm not even aware of. So I'm very careful, I feel like, and maybe I learned that at a younger age because I did see how it was influencing me positively or negatively.
Cool insight. When
Yeah.
did that start to change for you? When you're like, uh-oh, like I can do better.
I think when probably after I graduated college and started to work with some people that I did not like working with, and I realized it wasn't healthy. And then that made it a lot more apparent that I needed to be more calculated about how I spend my time and who I spend my time with and who's in my circle and my team. And I've just made a conscientious decision to really be careful and just have enjoyed the fact that I do get to cultivate my environment more. I like having that autonomy. And, but it probably took negative experiences probably to realize that that was something that had a strong hold on me.
What is the size? And I'm going to go back to the scratchy thing for post in your professional life, but what is the size of your inner circle now?
Yeah, I mean, so on a daily basis, who I would say that I work with, I mean, I have 19 athletes, but I don't see them every day. We don't talk every single day, but I guess that would be considered my inner circle. And then I have 3 other coaches, therapists that are part of that circle. And then obviously my family is an integral part in what I do. They're almost like part of the family business. My parents help out with my son with childcare. And then I have other like sponsors and people that I work with through other companies. But I would say that the Bowerman Track Club, the athletes and the coaches that I work with is probably like my core people that I like communicate with the most. And then my family, that I'm very close to my family. Almost everyone lives right here on the same street. So they're a big part of my life.
And what are some of the criteria that you have to invite people into this inner sanctum?
I just feel that ultimately there has to be some level of deep trust and that they have at least some decent communication skills to be really real with me and authentic with me. And then, always genuinely trying to seek out what's best for each other and being real about what's best for each other, I would say.
Do you have a model of trust that would hinge on one side or the other, that trust is given or trust is earned?
Yeah, I don't know that I've really ever thought about it too much. I would say in general, there's usually like a connection that I just feel with someone, and I feel it's almost like I give them at first the trust, or they to me, and then it's through that first giving that kind of either dictates whether it's further given, like genuinely given and continuously given. But I think I'm in general trusting enough to like trust initially, and then I see what people do with it, with that trust.
Are people mostly benevolent or Machiavellian?
I would say at least the people that I know are mostly benevolent, thank goodness. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why you would give trust more than say, you got to earn my trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then these are good kind of framing questions to consider, aren't they? Yeah.
It's making me reassess. I'm like, is that really what I think? Let me think. Yeah.
Let me think. Yeah. It is like, it is interesting in the sense that oftentimes we know what, and I think you're highly aware of it. You know what like the right thing to say is, because you've been under a spotlight much of your life. So you know what to say, what not to say, but then to get to the truth about what is real for you does require a different level of courage. And I believe that you are skilled at that too. And so after watching and listening to some of your interviews. And so, okay, so let's go back up one level, which is in the post-college years, in the pro years. And there's probably a fourth column for us to work from, which is coaching, when you went from, being in the amphitheater to coaching others in the amphitheater. Like there's probably a transition there. But what was scratching or unsettling when you're on the world tour?
While I loved being a professional athlete, I think what also scratched at me is what else I was probably missing in life, with the full-on dedication and lifestyle towards this singular focus that at times made my job of running feel heavy. I lost kind of, I think at times, the joyfulness and the playfulness that I talk about, because it was my job then. And I, at times, just my relationship with and the dynamic with running changed because it was a job. And so sometimes I would look at things that I couldn't go do because I had to make sacrifices to go towards the goal, right? And honor the gift and the goal that I had set for myself. And as a result, there were a lot of things that, I did miss out on and wasn't a part of. I mean, I don't think in 20 years I went to a wedding or a funeral. And I think that level of selfishness just didn't sit well, like a lot of the time. And so that made it really difficult because I felt very torn. Like I wanted to be all in, committed to the objective and goals that I'd set for myself. And by doing that, honoring the people that were helping me get to achieve those goals. There's a commitment for each individual athlete. There's hundreds of people around them that help them achieve those goals. And so honoring them, but also honoring like my heart, which was torn at times, missing out on family moments and just things that were important to me, memories that I wanted to have. But just knowing that there's a timeline and a ticking clock that was going to expire at some point athletically, and honoring that while missing out on things. I think that itched and scratched in me, just feeling like I was missing parts of life that were valuable, that I would really want to be a part of. That got to be really hard.
I hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
Do you feel it?
Oh yeah. Like I have specific things that happened. I remember just thinking like, man, I can't believe I'm choosing running over not being there for this person. So
okay, come on.
Ah,
Come on,
oh,
bring
but
it,
oh,
bring,
you want the
bring,
specifics?
bring it forward. You happy to keep the names,
Yeah.
I know, but
Well, yeah,
bring
no,
that forward.
my best friend, her husband, so the same age, we grew up together, and she had only been married a year, and her husband unexpectedly, like literally collapsed and died. And she was living in New York, and I was in Park City, Utah, training for the 2016 Olympics. And this was in June, and I was getting ready to run the marathon in late July, August, and a really crucial phase of training. And my coach did not want me to leave. And I really, really struggled knowing that I couldn't be there for her in this really just awful time. And I know that she probably didn't need me as much as I needed to be there. It was definitely more on my end, not just knowing that I wasn't present for her just really bothered me. And thinking like, is, whatever performance I put forth at the Olympics, is it really going to validate the fact that I wasn't there? And could I really live with myself knowing that I wasn't there? And it still bothers me to this day that I did not go and was not there to help her and support her through that really tough time. So things like that, I just, yeah, all for athletics. So, and it just seems really kind of silly, like that's what I would choose. But when you're in that moment and you've done so much to get to this point, and you're like thinking, well, I may get an Olympic medal, and that'll make this all worth it. And then when you don't get the Olympic medal and you're like, oh, and I gave up all that and I didn't achieve like the goal that I'd set out, it's really hard to stomach the saying no's, because, that was a hard no.
God, I appreciate that. I have, as you're talking about that, I have almost the exact same experience in my life. My best man of my wedding, I didn't go to his.
Mm-hmm.
I chose work, and
yeah,
you just can't get that back.
Yeah, you can't get it back. Exactly.
So how, yeah, it is hard. It's hard to bring that forward. So I'm grateful that you are. And the other part of the question is like, what are you doing with that pain?
Mm-hmm.
How do you process it, or once you bring it forward, how do you change or coach or be differently because of it?
I feel like since I retired, extremely, I don't know, I've just become way more aware of time and how I'm spending it. Because I did feel like I was in this time warp in like this weird chapter where it was so singularly focused, so selfish. And while it was great, it was amazing chapter, I don't want to be like that at all. And it's like made me feel like the antithesis of that chapter. And I feel like I notice like a lot more in life. I feel way more present and very just like way more purposeful. And like when I do have good days, I like really acknowledge it, and I'll say it a lot. Like, man, today was like a great day. And it could not be like that cool of a day on paper if you were to tell someone like what you did that day. It could just be like, oh, like I hung out with my son and I changed his poopy diaper like 5 times today. But for some reason, to me, there's other things that were happening in that day and they don't look that sexy on paper, but it was a great day. And I'm just a lot more aware of the fact that we have limited time, and to be just really grateful for the good days. And I just realized that sometimes normal is really great. And it takes usually traumatic, bad things to happen to appreciate normal. But I genuinely do just appreciate a normal day more now for some reason.
So you've talked about, this pressure during the professional phase. And one of those pressures being like the sacrifices and the choices that you're making. And it sounds like they're mostly about relationships. Mm-hmm. And obviously motherhood is really important to you. This is not something I've had to contemplate in my professional life, is the pressures of carrying a child. And so there is a different set of requirements and challenges that you've had that men, don't have. So I want to pull on this just a little bit, which is how have you been able to navigate that? And I'm wondering how that's folded into your love of coaching women. So can you talk about some of the choices that you're making relative to motherhood and when you're going to have a child and if you're going to have a child, if you always knew that, you didn't know? Can you just
Yeah.
open some of that and help water this part of your life?
Yeah. So during my career, and this is maybe more of an old school way of thinking, I definitely had it from a lot of sources ingrained in me that if I were to take myself seriously and do a very good job as an athlete, motherhood really wasn't part of that picture. That it was not really realistic to try to have a child and also come back to a high level of elite running. So it was kind of ingrained to me that like, that's a separate chapter and you wait till you're done running to do that. And I really struggled with it. It made me at times very unhappy, feeling like I was delaying that part of my life when I wanted it to be integrated into my profession. But I was a good athlete, and I did that. I gave everything I had to my running, and I didn't, integrate children into my life. My husband and I did do foster care, which did kind of fill that void that I was feeling. And so we had 2 identical teenage twin girls live with us for a year in 2016 to 2017. And ironically, like the highlight of my career was in 2017. So I learned a valuable lesson that children don't take away. Yes, you don't get as much sleep, but overall for me, it completely enhanced my life for sure. But I really did struggle, and there weren't a lot of models for me to model after in terms of just women being really successful and having children. And it's not been until as of late that it's become definitely more accepted and encouraged, and communities and just families gathering around women and creating an environment in which they can do and can have it all. So I think, at times I was resentful of running in my career because I didn't integrate that and have that aspect of my life. But yes, now that I'm retired, and as soon after I retired, we adopted my son, Jack. I've always, to a degree, known that I would want to adopt, regardless of whether I could have my own or not. And we are looking to adopt again. And I don't know if we will have our own children, biological or not. But I can say this, that regardless if that happens or not, the process of adoption and having Jack in my life, it's crazy how things work out, because I couldn't have dreamt up a better situation. And it was like I was meant to wait to a degree to find him and to have him in our life, because he's exceeded, like I said, every expectation. The situation is just beautiful and wonderful. We have a really great relationship with his birth mom. I feel like she's part of our family. And I never knew that those kind of relationships would have been in my life. So I'm very grateful to have waited it out. But it was hard. There was nothing easy about trying to decide how to manage and pick the timing of everything. But really happy with where I'm at now. And I think now moving forward with my athletes, if they come to me and they say, Shalane, like, I'm really struggling with family life and athletics, I am going to completely say, if it's in your heart that you want to become a mom now, I think you should. I don't think people should have the mentality of waiting. If that's what they want, their partner, if that's what they really want, I don't think they should wait like I did, to be honest. So even though I feel like it's worked out wonderfully for me, I just feel like life is short, and I just feel like if there's a dream that you have of fulfilling, and there's this like great country song I was listening to lately, where it's like something along.
We're not going to country, are we?
Yes, we
we're
are.
Going to country.
But it was true. It was like, the dream doesn't chase you back was like the line. I was like, oh God, I feel that. So like, if you have a dream, I just feel like there's a sense of urgency to what I feel like we need in our life. And not saying delayed gratification is great, but if that's what they really want, I would totally support and help them in any way possible.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break here to talk about bio-optimizers. And so regardless if you're getting after it in sport or in the business world, it is not uncommon to feel stress. Now, stress is not bad. We need stress to grow. It's chronic stress that creates challenges in health. Those chronic stresses take a toll on our body and specifically deplete your magnesium levels. This deficiency of magnesium can lead to higher levels of anxiety and irritability and trouble sleeping, low energy. It can even contribute to foot and leg cramps while you sleep. I personally take magnesium every day. It's made a massive difference on sleep for me. And it's also been shown in general to help with energy levels, blood pressure, irritability, depression, stronger bones, muscle cramping, migraines. But to experience these health benefits, you've got to get the right types of magnesium. There are actually 7 unique forms of magnesium, and you got to get them all in to get this thing right. And that's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough by Bio-Optimizers. All you need is a couple capsules before you go to bed, and I think you'll be amazed by the improvements in mood and energy, sleep, and just basically how much more rested you feel when you wake up. So for an exclusive offer, go to magbreakthrough.com/finding mastery and use the code finding mastery during checkout to save 10% and get free shipping. So how do you spell it? It's mag, M-A-G, breakthrough, BREAKTHROUGH, magbreakthrough.com/finding mastery. And Finding Mastery is brought to you by Sakara. I want to encourage you to check them out. I love what they're doing. I've been using their products for a long time. And so feeling your best is deeply influenced by what you eat. Sakara gives you the tools you need to transform your life with their organic, ready-to-eat meal delivery program and functional wellness essentials. So their chef-crafted meals are made with powerful plant-based ingredients. So this is really important. Their meals are plant-based, okay? Helping boost your energy, support your digestion, curb your sugar cravings, and even help you, with your skin glow if that's important for you. Plus, it's all delivered right to your door. The Sakara shop is also stocked with wellness essentials to help you create a body you feel strong and vibrant in. I love their metabolism super powder. It's awesome. They've got plant-based protein bars. Great. Their teas are incredible. I love their detox tea. It's a staple for me and my family. And their newest functional snack, it's a super seed plus nut blends. Awesome. So right now, Sakara is offering us 20% off your first order when you go to sakara.com/finding mastery, or you enter the code finding mastery 20 at checkout. So finding mastery 20. Again, that's Sakara, Sakara, sakara.com/finding mastery to get 20% off your first order. sakara.com/finding mastery. And now let's jump right back into our conversation. So this part of the conversation is about like hard decisions, and what I hear you saying is when something is animated and alive and there's real energy around it, like follow that.
Yeah.
It gets tricky when, let's say we're 3 years into a quad and your PRs are setting world standards. And so and you're like, trials are in 6 months and somebody comes to you and says, I want to have a child. It's like when 2 things are amazing is actually it's harder to make those decisions than if you're 3 years into the quad and you're way off world-class times. Okay. And I want to be I want to go into motherhood now. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, might really be a great time. But okay. So hard decisions. Cool. And then one of the things I'm fascinated by with really fast runners, especially anybody at the elite stage in the ultra space, is I want to understand how you do the hard thing. And we kind of touched on it earlier when you're younger, which was the hot stove and seeing how long I could keep it on there. Not literally.
Yeah.
But there's an athlete that I learned this from, Olympian, did not podium, was expected to podium. And he says to me, he goes, Mike, and he's a cyclist. And I said, what's it like out there for you? And he goes, well, let me tell you. He's a road cyclist. He says, let me tell you. It is like having a toaster in the middle of your chest, as hot as you can imagine a toaster running. And that's kind of what it's like for me the entire race. And I'm like, oh my, like what a great visual anchor to go, oh, wow. And so when I'm out doing something hard, cardiovascularly, is that the word? When I'm
Yeah.
when I'm out doing something hard from a cardio perspective, I have that image as a backstop, and I'm like, I don't think my toaster's as hot as his. Like, there's no chance it is. I could turn it up a little bit.
I'm stealing that from you. Now, from now on, I'm going to envision the toaster. So
Yeah,
thank you.
really good.
It is good.
So how do you do it? When it gets hard, gets hard for you, and maybe you say, listen, running's not hard. I love every part of it. And, but what is hard? Go back to this during the running now. What is the hard part? And then if we just really drill into that, like, how do you do those moments when it's really hard?
Yeah, I think you have to backpedal. And when these elite athletes are doing something hard, one, they've chosen to do it. They're not forced to do it. They choose that hard. They get to choose hard. Like there's a lot of things that come at us that we don't choose that hard. It's coming at us and we have to manage it, but we didn't choose it. We get to choose to do the hard thing. So to me, that says a lot, right? But I think backpedaling to your training. In training, I have always used, and I try to teach to my athletes, is this is the opportunity to practice every single day, dipping that toe into the hard. And your level of resiliency to the hard expands with the more times you dip your toe into the hard. And it becomes part of normal life. It becomes like breathing. It becomes like a state of flow. Hopefully, at the biggest stage, you can enter that phase of like, it's really hard. It's not that it's any easier that day, but you've done it so much that it has become so routine that you know how to manage and not allow emotion to enter. And you have calloused the body and the brain so well in practice so many times that when you get to that state on that stage, there's usually, hopefully, a heightened sense of just like state of flow that you can enter, in which that hard is no doubt really, really freaking hard, but you have practiced it so much that it becomes just so innate that you can't help but manage and do the right thing frequently.
Love it. How often do you get to that, or did you get to that state? It's not race day. I'm really clear. Yeah. It's not just race day. I'm really clear. But how often in training would you get the toaster all the way to 10 out of 10?
I would try to always have a little bit of it. Some days it was more engaged and it lasted longer. Like I really had to have that toaster oven on for a long amount of time. And some days it was shortened and it was just a little taste of it. But for every session that was an orchestrated session and like a workout, there's like training days, which are just general jogging, light running days. That didn't involve any pain. That was more like mental fatigue and getting through the mental fatigue of just an easy run. But any day that was specific quality, I'd always try to find an opportunity to have a little bit of that pain and discomfort, because it was just reminding me like, this is what it's going to feel like. And the more I can callous myself towards accepting that that's the reality of racing, the better off I was on race day.
What a model. Yeah. So your callous is super, like that is your model. Some are more like keto, there's lots of models, but you're like, I want to be more callous with it.
Callous the brain and the body. Yeah.
What do you say to yourself when you're approaching or in the thick of it?
It just depends on the day. I feel like there's different thoughts and different things that can enter. And I don't feel like it's ever exactly the same because every situation is different. But generally is that knowing the disappointment of giving into the pain is usually greater than that actual pain in that moment. And I hate more than anything disappointing myself. Like I can handle being disappointed in someone else actually better than knowing, because only I know exactly how I'm managing it. And I know whether I'm going to be disappointed in myself or not. And it has nothing to do with anyone else. And I know exactly what I'm capable of to a degree. And if I can just get myself to wrap my head around the fact that it will go away. It's not a forever pain, and knowing that it's not forever and that the repercussions are possibly reaching another level, or just finding out like just how good I can be against everyone else. Like that was enough for me to do it.
And is the approach, so I love that you're saying it's always different, it's true for me too. It's not like there's a stock go-to, but what I'm trying to understand, and you answered it, which is, what's the orientation? Is the orientation like, oh, I love it, I'm there, finally. Okay, great. Or is it like, God, this again? No, it's not that. Is it like, okay, grind it, numb it, you're fine, foot strike, foot strike, foot strike, you're okay, breathe, 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 you're okay, which is more technical, associative, as opposed to this flavor of appreciation. And so that's what I'm trying to sort out for you right now.
I mean, there may be some cursing, like I'm from Boston. So there may be like, oh, like every curse word you can think of is like, this is not fun right now. This is not fun. And a lot of curse words. And then it probably gets to the technicality to just focus on something other than the actual pain, and thinking about mechanics and diverting the discomfort to a degree and focusing on something that I can control, which is, my cadence, my breathing. Usually there's like a head to toe assessment of like, okay, how much energy do I have and how much longer do I think I can hold this? And like managing the amount of gas that's in the tank and making sure I have enough to sustain it. And so there's like a head to toe assessment of where the discomfort is. Is it in my legs? Is it in my breathing? Where is it located? And then assessing like how much more I can handle and for how long.
Yeah. So, okay. So association, disassociation. Are you familiar with that framework?
Somewhat. It sounds like I use it.
You do it. Yeah. So association is like tuning in to the thing that's happening. You're associating with it so that you can guide it, so that you can make some assessments or decisions. And then what you do, like I love the head to toe, which is exactly where I would coach somebody. And then from that, to not be absorbed in that, then you can set these little micro goals. Like, listen, I can keep this, get your pace right, get your breathing right, get your foot strike right, or whatever, and then, or gait. And then you say, okay, I can do this to the trash can. Right? And then but it's really important right before you get to the trash can, wherever that thing is, that you say, okay, recalibrate. And so you recalibrate, yes, I can do this again to that tree. Do you find that anything like that is workable for you and your athletes?
Yeah. I think that definitely applies for sure in marathoning. The longer you're out there, the more time you have to talk yourself out of doing something. When the races are quick, it's definitely more just like automatic response and not as much time in the head. Totally. So when I have athletes who are on the track, it's definitely more like just reactionary and not a lot of thinking. And the longer you're out there, there's plenty of time to think, and that's actually really dangerous. And so I think for sure that model applies very well to the distance races, for sure.
And then there's the disassociation, which is like, at some point it's like, listen, let me just listen to the birds. And like, you're not attuning. You're like, let me play a song in my head, whatever. So there's a disassociation from that. And there's an art to this. It's different for everybody.
Yeah. And in a marathon at the beginning of the race, I tell myself the disassociation, I like tune out. I literally I visualize falling asleep. Like you don't pay attention. You're not wasting any energy. You're literally going to go to sleep for 13 miles. And then when 13 miles hits, you're going to wake up. You're going to start to pay attention to yourself, to your competitors. There's a lot more just taking in all of the senses, the smells, the sights, everything becomes way more like high def and fine tuned. But the first half, if I'm not careful, my mental energy will be just exhausted by the time I get to halfway. And so to preserve and really get a great race, it's usually in the second half that I really become fine tuned with everything.
I got to remember that. It's a good one. Yeah. Okay. So we're swapping. Going to sleep. First 13 miles. I'm gonna take a nap. Yeah. And then you're gonna use the toaster oven in the chest. And that was Taylor Finney.
Cool.
Who shared that with me, just to give him the right credit. Yeah. And then okay. So I want to tell you I know we're kind of coming up on time here, but I want to share a story with you. Is that I did one ultra in my life. It was a stand-up paddleboard strike mission, solo, if you will. It was across the Pacific Channel from Catalina Island to one of the local beaches.
Wow.
And I heard all the right advice from people like yourself saying, "Hey, come out with a good pace. Do not come out fast."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, got it." So I came out, and the total distance was 32 miles and 32 plus. And I came out, and I started with a gratitude prayer, if you will. So I was like, for the first couple miles, I'm just going to do gratitude work. And I'm just going to be grateful for the ocean and grateful for my body and grateful for my loved ones, and no specific order. And it was probably about an hour and a half in, maybe 2 hours, somewhere in there. There's a safety boat that trails behind in case there's sharks. And so he was behind, and he comes, I hear him from a distance say, "Hey, you're flying." I was like, "Oh my God." And he says, "Your cadence is about 5.1, 5.2 miles an hour." And I'm supposed to be like at 4.2.
Oh no.
Yeah, oh no. So I completely bonked at, it was like mile 27. Completely, I hallucinations, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you say that, go to sleep. Well, I did something similar, which was the gratitude work. It totally backfired on me because I came out flying. So
yeah.
I think what you're suggesting is sophisticated. And I just want to honor how sophisticated that is.
Well, so when I say that, that's me racing. So when you're trying to achieve like more of like a specific goal other than just trying to compete against other people, that's very different. Racing is very different than like just going out and setting a specific time goal. So that's my advice really it applies to both, but for sure, when I would use that model of the going to sleep, it's for sure when you're competing, because then all of a sudden, when you have to compete, you have to have a lot of mental energy to navigate your competitors and like playing chess and manipulation and just where you're going to position. And there's just a lot of on your feet thinking that is required towards the end to get the most out of you. But yeah.
You've got an advanced understanding of science.
Yeah. No, okay.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So let's do this. Let's talk about recovery. It's a full-time job. Period. Right? Recovery is like
for athletes and for everyone in general. Yeah.
Yes, it's a full-time job. So let's talk about some of your recovery best practices. And the world is feeling high stress, chronic stress as a maladaptive response to acute stress. If we're better recovered and had better psychological skills and better recovery practices to deal with the acute stressors, we wouldn't feel the chronic stress that the world is feeling right now. So teach some of the best practices to recover well.
Honestly, I don't have a lot of fancy advice, which maybe is what's best because it's like very applicable to everyone. Throughout my career and my life, I've relied on a few things. One is sleep. Like sleep is massive in recovery. And I'm sure if anyone knows that when they don't get a good night's sleep, how their mood is affected, their body just doesn't feel well, the mental clarity. I'd say that that's like one of the things that I focus on maybe the most, especially as a parent, is knowing that I need to get a sufficient amount of sleep, and everyone is different too. Like it depends on how much you need. My husband sleeps a lot more than me and I can operate on a little bit less, but I know that that is essential to like, particularly my mood. So sleep is huge. Food has been essential.
Let's stay on sleep for just a minute.
Yep.
So it's not just hours, right? It's like the things that you do prior to get the hours.
Sure.
And so what are some of the things, like my last meal is, if I'm really on it, is not later than 7:30.
Yep.
I like to start earlier so that my bedtime is around 10 or 11-ish, somewhere in that area. And so I need to get the right window of digestion in place so that my heart rate can come down or can balance in the right way to get into the deep part of sleep.
Yeah.
So that's one of my practices. And I think both of us also appreciate Inside Tracker.
Yes. Yeah. I would consider them as part of my team. I've done blood testing throughout my entire career. It's been an integral part of my program to make sure that I stay healthy and monitor specifically a few biomarkers that are essential to endurance athletes, like ferritin and hemoglobin, hematocrit, B12, vitamin D, as well as some other markers. But as soon as Inside Tracker came out and I started working with them, unfortunately, I was just upon retirement when I discovered them and started working with them. They do such an incredible job of customizing everything and doing a super thorough panel. And this past fall, specifically using them with a crazy goal that I had of running 6 marathons in 42 days, they were instrumental in keeping me healthy and optimizing my energy and making sure that I could finish this crazy goal and come out of it feeling really good. And now I'm having all my athletes use them. But yeah, it's been huge. I think assessing inside out is the way to go. And to just have the control over knowing exactly what's going on. And sometimes it's tricky with nowadays getting in doctor's offices. And this is just a simple blood test and you get instant feedback and are able to have an actionable plan based on science and data that is genuinely just you. And so I've loved consulting with their dietitians. I'm big into food. I have my own cookbooks, but to know exactly what I need and not just be throwing darts in the dark.
I think that this is a meaningful investment for humans that want to understand what they're capable of, because getting the nutrition piece dialed in is one of the core substrate. And if you're flat or missing or deficit in any particular area, the solutions are not hard, but knowing the specific solutions to get to, and this is why blood analyses, I think, are a great solution. And modern tech and science has gotten to a place that it's really applied, and Inside Tracker has done a nice job there.
Yeah, I think people are walking around daily not feeling optimized for sure. I know that. And here I was as an elite athlete thinking I was taking care of myself. I still had work to do. I have high cholesterol. And so being aware of that and working with the dietitians and being able to have an actionable plan to address high cholesterol or whatever biomarkers that aren't optimized. But at the end of the day, we all want more energy and to feel better and to serve other people. And I want to give energy to my athletes and to my child and to my family. And there's a lot that I want to delegate and go around. And if I'm not optimized, then I can't give the way I want to give. And so I really appreciate the insight and the science-backed information that I get from Inside Tracker.
God, this is why you are a community builder. You just shared it. I want to give energy to my loved ones. I want to give energy. So I need to cultivate that energy. And one of the ways is nutrition. Another way is sleep. Another way is thinking well. It's really clear why you have built the community. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's really clear how you've built this community. That is awesome. And so let me go back upstream really quickly. We talked about those 3 areas of your life, and I asked one question. The other question underneath, can you go back up with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. High school, middle school, high school. I am. How would you finish that statement?
I am trying to figure out who I am.
Mm-hmm. Go to the college years. I am
starting to figure out who I want to be.
Very cool. Professional career?
I am fulfilling a piece of me.
Wow. Go to the post.
I'm getting to redefine and explore all the possibilities that I could be. I don't know.
God. If there's 1 or 2 things that you're going to be able to make sure that you pass on to Jack, your son, what would one of those 2 things be?
Yeah, love is love. I know that for sure. And especially through adoption, I realized that you're capable of loving in a in a way that I think people are afraid to love and just worried that they can't love. And I realized love is love, and genetics don't, with children, have any boundaries to love. And so that's been beautiful knowing that and living it. So hopefully he feels that and sees that. And just knowing that we only have one precious life, and to try to use it daily as best we can. And I love being very busy because I want to make sure my days are full of purpose and serving. And hopefully he sees that with the way that my husband and I live, and that we don't take a day for granted. And I feel very appreciative of my health and ability to do what I do. And hopefully he finds something in his life that gets him excited to wake up every day and a sense of purpose, and that he uses his time well.
You have lived a high performance life where you have found yourself in the category of being the best in the world. Do you want that life for your son?
Yes, if it makes him happy. Being the best at something is fun. And exploring limitations or lack thereof, and boundaries within yourself. And I think a lot of people go through life not exploring and like aligning with their gift. And if people can actually, like, everyone I genuinely believe has a gift to give to themselves and to give to others. And I think a lot of people go through life not finding that gift or seizing that moment. Like maybe there is a moment where they could have grabbed onto the gift, but they didn't realize that was the moment that could change their life and the trajectory of their life for the better. And so if he has a gift that it's exceptional and it's that elite, rare life, I do think there's something special. And I hope he's excited by that. Yeah.
So what would you teach him that you missed out on?
That you can still honor a gift and pursue it, but you can also always make time for, regardless of how important that moment is or that gift, and honoring it. There, you can always make time for the people that you care about, and should always do that. I think I learned that by not honoring that throughout my career.
So you're coaching women. This is part 2 to the question. You're coaching women.
Mm-hmm.
You were coached mostly by men.
Yes.
And you are now a woman coaching women. And so I would love to understand where have I, people like me, where have we gotten it wrong?
Yeah, I think I'm finding my way as a coach. I would for sure say that, like, I had imposter syndrome, probably because I didn't have a lot of women to model after. I definitely feel like there's this, you can't be what you can't see. So I'm one of the first and kind of only female coaches in this arena, in this sport, at this level. And so I think I'm finding my way and observing, and I've only had male coaches, but I think the level of communication that I can offer women is different, because I am a female, and there is a level of communication that is just different. And their ability to express things that allow them to be more vulnerable and more themselves. I noticed a lot with women who are coached by men that they are very people pleasing, and they want to always say the right thing and do the right thing, and don't exactly say exactly what they want to say. And so I think from a male coaches out there, it's always asking more and more questions to get down to really what is wanting to be expressed. You really maybe have to dig more because they're not going to be as open and willing to share, just because there's just not the same level maybe of openness and comfortable like capacity is what I'm noticing.
Two things that when you say that, I'm grinning inside because one, I built a whole training program for a Fortune 50 company on high performance coaching. And it's taking best practices from the sport world into helping managers, directors, leaders coach the best of the best in business and pull out, their untapped potential. And so part of that model is that masterful coaches, and please, I'm not talking about life coaching. I'm talking about, just masterful coaches in general. They ask way more questions than even high performance coaches, certainly more than performance coaches, and certainly more than amateur coaches. And so it's the question asking to get to the uniqueness of the individual, to fully understand that individual so that you can support and challenge in a healthy way on the same side of the table. So we're in agreement on what we're going to do together, but we have to understand. And it's question. What'd you see? What'd you feel? What'd you hear? What'd you experience? What'd you learn? Those types of questions to pull out. And at that level, this is where I'm going to share a story with you and wave me off if I'm way off here. Okay. Because I'm not female and I don't know what it's like to be coached by a male being a female, right? So I don't know how I don't know how to get better other than using my imagination here. But best of the best are more similar, independent of gender, region of the world, than the others. And so they are more similar than dissimilar. And the approach still from the coach perspective is to pour in a deep commitment to understand the uniqueness of that person. And so, am I close so far?
100% in my,
Okay. All right. So now let's flash back. It was almost, I guess it must be 15 years ago. I don't know when the inception, I think it was year 1 or year 2 of ESPN's W. So ESPN Women. And they asked me to speak. And so I was speaking at that event, and the question came from the back of the room. It was the Q&A part. I was on a panel with 2 other folks. And the question comes from the back of the room, and I was the only male in the panel. And it was about coaching the best in the world females. Is there a difference in the way that we coach males and females? And my heart dropped because here I am in this room of extraordinarily talented women, mostly women. And the truth for me is no, they're no, like they're more similar than dissimilar. Yeah. And I was like, God, do I say that here? I can't say that here because I know what everyone wanted me to say. Yeah. And so I said what was true to me, and I could hear the room rumble, and I was like, oh God, I am in trouble here. Yeah. And so I still think I heard you, I saw your response and felt your response to it, and I think we're trying to figure it out. We're all trying to figure it out, and there's no manual to go read. But if you hold somebody in high regard, you're going to end up figuring out the uniqueness of that person. Yeah. And how would you have answered that question? Yeah. And I mean, you can only speak to your experience, right? So if that's what you genuinely see and feel, and I agree with you. I just think the communication skills are just different in how you have to maybe extract some things at times. But my head coach that I work with, who coached me, who's male, he and I both say, like, people want to say, oh, it's like coaching them is so different, or the training is so different. I can tell you, we give them the same workouts, men and women, the same program. The women can, and so like people think, oh, well, you have to like change things for the women. No, they get the same program. Women and men are doing the same exact program. They're just as capable. They can do, given the paces that are appropriate to their training, they're given the same program. The women don't need less, don't need more. They are doing exactly the same thing. And we don't
there's not like a lot of like differentiation. There's not a lot of different treatment. The only aspect that I'm noticing is just the ability to communicate at times with me, and how they communicate with me is different than the male coach. And I think they just like having the dynamic of both a male and female for the more sensitive things that are more life applicable and things that they want to discuss within their life. It's a little bit more emotional. It's not as like cutthroat XYZ of this program. They definitely come to me with just more personal information that they feel comfortable with. And so I think having the outlet of the dynamic of both is actually the perfect blend, because I think they respect both of us to do a lot of things, but it's almost like having a mom and a dad. You just have certain things that I feel like they feel more comfortable telling me. And I think that offers them the space to feel really heard and feel just like we've figured them out. And there are certain things that mom and dad have different things, skill sets to offer. And I think that's where the dynamic of having me around in this arena and this setting with coaching is valuable. Beyond just my general knowledge, they just have this comfortable
That's cool.
component to me. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. And then how about menstruation
Mm-hmm.
and the cycle? Like how do you because
Yeah.
let's just reference the female athlete triad
Yep.
and sometimes the compromised menstrual cycle for
Yeah.
some athletes that, are training in extreme environments or training in extreme ways. So how do you manage that?
Yeah. So again, it's like I'm dating myself. Back in the day when I started as an elite athlete, it was like a badge of honor to lose your cycle. And that meant you were training really hard. And like, it was like, yeah, like you're doing a great job. You're pushing yourself to your limits. I can, from my personal experience, say I never got to that point. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not training hard enough. Like I never experienced that.
Right.
And so for a while, I was like, man, I'm just clearly not doing it right. But then I learned a lot more, did a lot more homework, and realized like the long-term side effects, and it just leads to injury, and it's just not good in general. And especially as a female who wants to be reproductive, certainly not good to have that. So all of my athletes know that is not the goal, that
Right. Yeah.
always should be getting their cycle. And if they do, they let me know. If they do lose their cycle, they do let me know, and we revisit what they're eating and maybe potential stressors outside of running, and seeing if it's life-related stress or if it's like the actual stress of the running program. Or generally, in my experience, it's been a lack of just dynamic in their diet, of not enough like fats. And these women get very lean, and they don't like try to manipulate their physique too much, except for right in the peaking season. There's definitely, they're very adamant about like just not having in general, just not a lot of sugar in their diet. It's an inflammatory response to that. So they just are very clean eating, but nothing is off limits. Like they're still having chocolate. They're still, doing things that make them happy and eating foods that make them happy. But so we address it. They all know that is not the objective, to not have a cycle. And they know that for their long-term health, and even for that season, that if they go down that road of losing their cycle, that it will likely, the repercussion will be injury. And then worst case scenario, issues with reproduction if they want to have children down the road. So it is not, it's like they're afraid of that happening. Whereas back in the day when I started, it was like a badge of honor to lose your cycle, which is just crazy. So,
yeah. Okay. And then, super refreshing that people are listening to normal functions of the body and saying, hey, let's make sure that we're honoring this. And then, so if an athlete is in that phase pre or during the cycle, how does training change at all for them?
I feel like I don't know enough. In general, our athletes do the training, and there is not one peep about their cycle, unless it's like an extremely, unless it's
not happening.
Yeah. Unless it's not happening. So I've never heard them come to practice and say, I can't do this workout today. It's very, very rare that they'll even say like, I just don't feel good today, and I'll know what that means. That's very rare. So I don't know if they're I just think that they just look at this as like, well, like I'm gonna just make the best of today. And I think they just know that like it could happen on race day. So you have to learn how to manage this aspect of being a woman. But we've never adjusted training unless an athlete's like, really not feeling well. But I can't even really think of a time that we have. And it's not that they wouldn't be allowed to, it's just that we haven't had that be the case with any of the women that we coach. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And then just for context, I want to go back to the female athlete triad. Well, let me just talk about the three elements of it, but then I'm curious about, is this something that you are alarmed by at the elite level, or is it something, maybe the percentage of folks that you're seeing that struggled here, maybe earlier in their career, or is it still something that you've got your, ear to the ground on? But the three main symptoms are, there's a disordered eating, component to it. There's amenorrhea, and then there's some osteoporosis, which that cluster of symptoms is considered the female athlete triad. And so the specificity of the question is, are you seeing it at the elite level in alarming ways, or is it rare? And, or are you seeing it in sub-elite in concerning ways?
At the elite level, I'm not aware, other than like I take intense stock of the athletes that I work with. I have not come across or know of any women at the elite level. I'm not saying that that doesn't occur, but I have not known. I mean, I've seen women who've come out with saying that they've had eating disorders, for sure. I don't know any females with osteoporosis. Athletic amenorrhea, I'm sure, is quite prevalent. And why I decided, my motivation to write cookbooks is to help young women, specifically like high school, college, with disordered eating. I didn't realize that that was a problem until I entered college, and I actually had a roommate who had an eating disorder, and it was kind of traumatizing, to be honest. I didn't think of food in that capacity ever. And to watch her be self-destructive and not be able to compete and really unhealthy. And it scared me, but it also motivated me to set a good example. And then at some point, actually try to change the culture with cookbooks and have young women be able to use it as a resource in their lives and trust me when I say that you should eat butter, you should eat fat. There are certain things that are instrumental to your health, and to not do fad dieting, that just doesn't work. And there's a reason why I don't have calorie counts and grams of this and that in my cookbook, is because I want people to be obsessed with the splits on their watch and other things other than, the calorie counts, and just not a healthy mentality. So I do believe that it's probably worse, honestly, in like the high school level, where there's a lot of insecurities and misinformation. Unfortunately, I think that's probably the worst area, that high school and college level, which is not actually at the elite level, because if you make it to the elite level, you must have done, to a degree, something right to get there. If you're sabotaging yourself with other ways of trying to like cheat to get to that level, like you won't sustain it and you won't make it.
Very cool. I mean,
Yeah.
what so much, you're just such a wealth of knowledge, and you've lived in the arena, you've had the spotlight on you, you understand what it's like to be in those spaces. And then now you're building communities of health and vibrance and high performance, for folks that are lucky to work with you. So I want to say thank you. I also am hopeful that maybe you can pass on a couple books or some folks. The name of your cookbook, please.
My cookbooks are Run Fast, Eat Slow, Run Fast, Cook Fast, Eat Slow. And then recently, the new one is Rise and Run, that came out this fall. So.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, last question.
Okay.
Is okay. Actually, two. Give me two.
Okay.
Two. One is, if you were to sit with a master, who would that be? Where would it be? And if you only had one question, what would you want to ask?
Oh gosh, you come up with some hard questions.
So
It's
sorry.
like really introspective.
Not sorry.
A true master, and what I would imagine would be someone who has done something so much and developed a skill set and put in so much time that what they do, it's almost maybe that they don't even like think about the actual act of what they do. I mean, what would you define as master? Would it be that?
I love what you just said.
So you don't even conscientiously know that you're a master because it's so innately and it's so part of who you are, right?
It's so eloquent and so creative. Yeah. So you've got it. But who is that person for you?
I don't know if I have a person in my life or just someone I admire.
I mean, they could even be not with us anymore.
Yeah. Gosh, well, I'll just use someone who's relevant to today and that people probably are aware of and know, and is very of the times. Tom Brady just retired the other day, and I think what he's a master of that I really admire is that his mastery was not actually on the field. It was in front of a computer screen studying the sport and learning the sport and his mind was more powerful than his body in a sense. And it kept him in the sport a lot longer than most would have predicted. And he's set a whole new standard for the level of playing and the age at which retirement is now the norm. And him pushing that boundary and he's a true master of the mind in terms of football. And I've had fun just following his career and watching how he's mastered the brain and learning constantly.
And if you had one question with him, what would it be?
Did he have fun all the way until the end? Like, did he genuinely have fun all the way? And yeah. And did he ever think he would, knowing where he came from, did he ever think that he'd be in this position and dream up this dream of how long he'd be playing? And did he have fun all the way to the end?
Awesome question.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about for you? Did you have fun all the way to the end?
No, I didn't. I did at small elements of it, but I think the dynamic of running being my job, I think to me just started to not be fun. And, some people may think that's kind of crazy. Like, oh, you got paid to run. Like, that's a pretty good job. And it was, but I enjoy the dynamic and the relationship I have with running now that it's not my job, and it's making it more fun now that it's not my job.
And then here's the second question that I was going to ask is at what point in your career did you introduce sports psychology in a formalized way?
In high school, I developed, I think, some anxiousness and didn't know how to manage it. And it would kind of come out in certain races and circumstances. And I never addressed it in high school. And when I got to college, I had one particular race that was kind of snapped me and was like, I need to get some help. I can't do this on my own. And I need to reframe and retrain my brain to think of racing and manage the stress and allow myself to get the most out of myself. And I'm not going to be able to do that alone. And my coach didn't seem to have the words or the ability to help me. And I sought out on my own a sports psychologist because I just felt like I needed that to be able to find out if I could get better and be better than what I was showing and manage the weight and the expectations that I was carrying. And so I saw, of all places, I went to Carolina, and of all places, I sought out a sports psychologist at Duke University. So, and so
I can hear my friends over at Carolina going, Mike, why didn't you take that out? You're making me look bad.
I know. So,
you went to UNC?
I went to UNC, and so I saw him for a little bit, and then I just felt like I was in a good place. And I did not use a sports psychologist after that, but I wish I had. And now I actually have my athletes consult with sports psychologists. And as much as I want them to rely solely on me, I know that there's a skill set and an ability for sports psychologists. And it's like, to me, it's now should become staple with every single team and every athlete. But again, I was a little bit more old school, and you got to tough it out and do it on your own. And so I realized that was a mistake throughout my career, and I think could have helped me even get more out of myself. But I do realize just that one instance totally changed the rest of my collegiate career because of it. So, I'm
Awesome.
very, very grateful for, I believe his name is Greg Dale. At Duke.
Greg. Yeah.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Great.
So, so very, very happy that I saw Greg, even though he was a Dookie.
Awesome. Nice work. Thank you for the spirit of honesty and authenticity and the knowledge base, both from a learner perspective, as well as from, the lived perspective and the wisdom that you brought into this conversation. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
What a
very
joy.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hope our paths get to cross.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I would love that. Do you travel much, or are you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like a joke, 260 days a year for the last 10, 15 years. And then the pandemic hit. Yeah, it was not.
So how did you psychologically handle like the pandemic? Was that good for you? Some people were like, that was great.
It was listen, I just want to be super sensitive how I say this, because there's been a lot of heartache, my family and otherwise. But for me and my immediate family, like being home with my son who was growing up, it was like, what a beautiful reset. Yeah. And I was I was getting nauseous packing my bag. I was not unpacking my bag basically when I come home. Yeah. And so I was becoming nauseous, literally nauseous on my way to the airport. Yeah. And then, so it was like fully welcomed, and what a great reset. And while I love being in person with people, this time has been incredibly meaningful. Right.
I agree. It was one of the best years of my life. And, personally, just Jack was born and I got to spend the first year with him full on being a mom, no distractions. It was wonderful. And again, I feel bad saying that because there's a lot of hardship for a lot of people, but it's maybe one of the best years I've had. So,
no, I think it's really important. You're normalizing a couple of things that, independent of having awareness, but independent of other people's experiences, your experience is uniquely yours, whether it's the high school sports psychologist that you went to, or in college, or the last year of your life. So I think it's one of the gifts that you've given our community is the authenticity to say it like you see it. And it's great. And so, listen, I honestly, again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yes, hope our paths cross.
Let's make it happen at some point.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.